Hello. I'm a divorced single working mother in my 40s who is raising a 5-year-old son. Are you getting along well with your mother-in-law? Or do you have a good relationship with her? I wasn't married for a very long time, but I never got along well with my mother-in-law. She just hated me. Even before I met her, just the fact that I was dating her son was enough for her to hate me. It was because she thought compared to her son I was much more inferior in terms of education or job. In a word, to borrow her expression, I was a woman below the standard for her son. Despite poverty, my husband graduated from Yale University, majoring in business administration all on his own effort. And as soon as he graduated, he got a job at one of the major multinational companies in the US. To my mother-in-law, her son was her only pride and also her weapon. On the other hand, I went to a 4-year university in New York. But it was not a prestigious university that could stand on par with Yale. After I graduated, I wanted to become a CPA, so I was in the midst of studying for the CPA exam. However, my father suddenly got sick. In order to earn money for his hospital bill, I got a job at a medium-sized company right away. Unfortunately, my father passed away after 5 years of fighting the disease, leaving my mother and me. At that time, my mother ran a small hair salon, and without my father, she seemed smaller and less enthusiastic about life. So I had to become the head of the household and take care of my mother, who was struggling with depression. When my husband heard about my situation, he felt bad for me and promised to be with me through any hardship. But when my mother-in-law found out about our marriage, she was against it. However, my husband had already made up his mind to marry me regardless of his mother's objections. Despite her efforts to dissuade him, including getting angry and going on a hunger strike, nothing worked. My husband's father had passed away when he was in high school, and his family faced financial difficulties. Because his mother could hardly make a living, she couldn't pay much attention to my husband. My husband, who is so smart, studied on his own, and he studied well enough to compete for first or second place in the whole school without any after-school programs that most students took for a fee. It was to the point where other strangers would come to see his mother asking for ways to help their children get good grades like her son. Perhaps from then on, even if she didn't do anything in particular, she went around holding herself high with great pride because of her son who excelled on his own. But she had her conscience that it wasn't because of her efforts for her son to get high grades and a great job. Thus, whatever her son wanted to do, she didn't have much voice in going against his decision. But marriage was no small thing. Also, his mother had her own desired plan, and she wanted to stop our marriage somehow. However, her son wouldn't budge, so she was fretting over it in order to prevent our marriage. She changed her target from her son to me. And on the day I went to say hello to my mother-in-law, she said this at our first meeting. "Well, I really don't think this marriage is right. Originally, marriage is for people of the same level to have no problems. James, think carefully. Why would a guy like you, who has a great job at a famous company, marry a girl like her? Besides, the father-in-law is dead. Then your mother-in-law would have been left alone. But that would not be easy for you. Mom, how could you say those things in front of a guest? What about it if my mother-in-law is alone? You are also alone. Sharon is a good person, and so is her mom. I don't know what you're worried about, but please stop and open your mind now, because we can live happily. I'm going to get married anyway, but if you keep being negative, we'll only feel uncomfortable with each other." James, please stop. Mother, I know very well that I am lacking a lot, but I'll still do my best. Please give me a chance to, please. Oh my God, I am really upset. It's not a matter of whether you're doing well or not. Do you know what the neighbors say about my son? Everyone says that with my son's background, his best match would be a school teacher or someone who works for a large corporation or a government employee. It is so embarrassing. How would I explain to them about this marriage? Are you saying you can object only because of your reputation? Does that make any sense? Everyone has similar assessments of people. When people think of it that way, they have good reasons. You are so naive. Did I raise you to end up like that? Even though I haven't done much for you, I still lived my life only looking forward to your future. Then I can't help it. From now on, don't look at me. Look at Coco. I don't intend to cancel this marriage. Coco was my mother-in-law's favorite pet in the world, a Maltese dog. At my husband's words, my mother-in-law looked dumbfounded, but my husband ignored her and took my hands to leave in the middle of it. I honestly didn't know what to do. Besides, I heard while dating my husband that even others envied how my mother-in-law and my husband were very close, so I couldn't help but feel uneasy that they were becoming distant because of me. So even if we had to delay our marriage, I wanted to be accepted by my mother-in-law, somehow. I don't know why I went that far, but like my mom, I wanted to give credit to my mother-in-law's difficulty in marrying off her son, whom she relied on so much, and her desire to have a daughter-in-law she had in mind. I don't know why I wanted to be accepted and get along well with my mother-in-law so much at that time. Anyway, that's how I felt at the time. I believed that one of these days she would accept me and understand my sincere feelings for her. I believed that because my feelings toward my husband were so deep. It's called being blinded by love. At that time, I was so in love that I didn't mind even though my mother-in-law's opposition against me was so great. Rather, I felt pity for my mother-in-law because my husband was so adamant against his mother's wishes. My husband and I met like some kind of drama. Our first meeting was like that. The two of us met for the first time in a theater to watch the same movie alone. I've always loved watching movies. I barely found a movie at a late time, so I was alone, but I was so excited to finally see the movie that I went to the theater. It started with me sitting right next to my husband. My husband was strange, because even though he was sitting alone, he was eating an oversized popcorn while holding it to his chest. As a result, that popcorn connected me and my husband. At first, I thought he was a popcorn lover and didn't think much of it. But when the movie was about to start, I was trying to concentrate when an annoying incident happened to me. The person sitting behind me kept kicking my seat. Although it may seem minor, it was an annoying and frustrating thing. I held back a few times, and then finally jerked my head to turn and look at the person behind me, with a very disgusted face. Then in the back seat, there was a couple, a man and a woman, sitting and looking away from my gaze. So I thought he wouldn't do it anymore. But as if I didn't matter to him, he started kicking my seat again. After that, I kept jerking my head over and over to look back at them, because I felt that the guy was the culprit. To make matters worse, while kicking my seat, the man was giggling and whispering with the woman, which seemed like he was enjoying it as a game. It was a movie that I really wanted to see, so my frustrated anger was multiplied. By the time the movie had been playing for over 30 minutes, I couldn't bear it any longer. So I was thinking of saying something to him when my husband handed me his popcorn and said, "Honey, the popcorn is so delicious. Why aren't you eating? Is something uncomfortable? If you feel uncomfortable, tell me. I'll fix it for you." His voice was louder than I thought, and later I learned that he wasn't talking to me, but for the man behind me to hear him. After that, however, I was able to watch the rest of the movie without any annoying kicks, enjoying the popcorn that night when I usually don't eat popcorn. After the movie ended, I gave back his popcorn and thanked him, but I realized that I ate his popcorn a lot more than I thought. I felt embarrassed, so I told him that I would buy him a drink. But he asked me to buy him a cup of coffee outside the theater. That's how our relationship started. While talking with him, I found out that we had a lot of things in common, such as our personalities, hobbies, and most of all, the situation where he had to be the head of the household while living with a single mother. Thus, we knew all too well the hardest things to deal with, more than anyone else. So we kept in touch and met after that, and before we knew it, we felt like we were each other's only haven, comforting one another and becoming a couple. And naturally, it led us to think of our future as nothing but living for our happiness. And that continued to our getting married. However, the strange thing was, I decided to get married because I only looked at my husband's way of thinking. But my friends and coworkers often said that I was only marrying him for his great background. Whenever I heard such comments, I was upset because I felt like my true feelings were being misunderstood. So I vowed that when I could afford it, I would study again so that I could be a person of caliber to be with my husband. However, it was easy to say, but the reality of married life didn't go the way I wanted in terms of time or money. On the other hand, just the fact that I had my husband by my side made everything fine. More than anything, he cherished and loved me the most in the world. At the time, I thought there was no one like him. So, even though I knew that my mother-in-law was determined to bully me in earnest after our marriage, I would take it. We lived separately in our newlywed home. But not only did she call me to make me do her household chores, she also made me cook all those labor-intensive party menus when she didn't even like to eat that food. After I went through all the trouble of making them, she would complain that it was inedible and throw the food away into the garbage can right in front of me. She had that intention from the beginning when she told me to make all those menus that were completely new and strange to me. Of course, being human, I would feel resentful and angry and even think of vile things against her. However, whenever I thought bad things about her, she would always say that she felt sick. Then, I would become weak and think she needed me and be tricked by her sly ploy to make me believe that she was depending on me. Whenever I was treated that way, I didn't complain to my husband about his mother. I thought he must have already known about it naturally. But that was the problem. My husband did not have a clue that I was stressed because of his mother. Instead, he told me about the wife of his colleague, who got married a little earlier than us, and said that she had a conflict with her mother-in-law. I was a little disappointed in my husband for the first time that day. He complained about her, saying, "I don't know if it was before marriage, but after getting married, she had to do what she had to do. How could a daughter-in-law fight against her mother-in-law? I really think I married well. You're trying to get along with my mom no matter what." Well, still, that colleague's wife must be having a hard time. She's making it hard on herself. Listen, I'm sorry for saying this, but she's pathetic. Does a man have a gene that can't help it when he gets married? Or is it because it has become a habit? Because I was accepting all of my mother-in-law's bad behavior. Anyway, when I heard that from my husband, strangely, I felt offended. After 3 months of marriage like that, no matter how I tried to think positively, she was a bit too much. That happened to me and my mother-in-law. At the center of the problem was a pet dog, Coco, which was very much loved by my mother-in-law. One day, Coco looked at me and barked at me so much. "If you keep barking like that, you'll get scolded." I scolded the dog menacingly. My mother-in-law saw it and said, "Hey, you seem to be misunderstanding something. To me, Coco is like my daughter. Then what would she be to you? Who are you to scold your sister-in-law? I believe that a human being and an animal are the same. Coco is also your husband's sister, so treat her like your sister-in-law from now on. If you treat her any less, as if she was just an animal, I won't stand for it. Remember that." Oh my lord, does this make sense? I like dogs too, but a dog is my sister-in-law? Furthermore, I have to treat her like my sister-in-law. So if I have a child, does my child have to call that dog an auntie? I thought I was being forced to do something weird. However, my mother-in-law's outrageousness did not end there. "Hey, after you get off work, take your sister-in-law for a walk. My back hurts too much today. It hurts and I can't even walk. Mother, I think I'll have to work overtime today at work. Since you also have back pain, wouldn't it be better to skip a walk today?" What are you talking about? Walking is very important to our Coco. What work is so important that you're doing? Don't talk nonsense. I don't care about your overtime or whatever. Just come right away and take your sister-in-law for a walk. No matter how important a walk is, it is not as important as earning a living. So I couldn't help but send an SOS to my husband to take his sister for a walk. Because I never told my husband about his mother, he was bewildered by my call, and he said he would when I said his mother ordered it, even though it was absurd. He said he would take off early from work that day. Then I got off work so tired, nearly around midnight, when my mother-in-law called me yelling, "How dare you make my son do what I told you to do? If you're that great, why not get into a big company? Why go to a company with no name?" I was stunned. "This is why I didn't want my son to marry you. A low level. Your salary is less than my son's. How dare you order my son around when I don't even do that? Mother, it's not that I ordered him around, but it was you. If you didn't force me to walk the dog in the first place, it wouldn't have happened. But you kept insisting on it. What? Are you saying I was wrong? And I said my Coco is my daughter. Is she a dog? Why aren't you calling our Coco your sister-in-law? Don't you even know our genealogy? She was being so ridiculous. Who puts a pet dog in their family genealogy? No matter how much she loves her dog, insisting that I address her as my sister-in-law is uncalled for. So I told her that I like dogs as dogs, but I couldn't treat a dog as a human being. Then she threw a fit. And when I was in the middle of an argument with her, it woke my husband up from sleep. He told me to hang up in his very angry voice. I said, "This is your mother on the phone. All you needed to do was just say sorry. But why are you talking so long on the phone?" He came out to the living room and told me to hang up the phone with a very annoyed face. "What is it?" "This phone is your mother. You should just say sorry. Why are you talking on the phone for so long?" Whatever the reason, my mother is an elder. And today you didn't do what the elder told you to do. Then you could have just said you were sorry and wouldn't do that next time. With something that didn't need to make a fuss. What time is it? I have an important meeting tomorrow. Let me sleep in peace. Obviously, I was in a bad mood because of my mother-in-law. But after hearing my husband that day, I felt different about everything. No matter what happened, I was able to handle whatever happened between his mother and me, but my husband's words hurt me so much. After that day, I felt distant from my husband, and I was so frustrated that I confided in a close colleague about my feelings. Initially, when men get married, everything seems perfect. It's like he would do anything for you or you before marriage. But after a while, after getting married, he becomes self-centered. When that happens, you need to become better than that proud husband. You need to break that attitude. Did you say he works for that famous corporation? It won't be easy. He will probably ignore you even more. No way. My husband is not like that. Even though I said no, I couldn't stop thinking about his request for me to let him sleep in peace, because he had an important meeting. And with my colleague's warning, I became anxious that it would come true. So before having a baby, I made a vow to increase my value. I loved my husband, but I didn't have the confidence to love him, even when he ignored me. I had a strong desire for my worries to end as needless worrying due to my anxiety. However, a crucial event occurred that changed everything for me. It happened on the day I was very sick with the flu that was going around, and I couldn't even go to work. Somehow, my mother-in-law knew and brought me some hot chicken soup to eat. I wasn't sure why I was so happy to see her, whether it was from feeling hurt by my husband or being moved by her warmth, unlike her usual behavior towards me. "Mother, I thought you lost your appetite because you were so sick, so I brought some soup. I told James to stay at our house since he could catch the flu from you. Is it okay with you?" "Why, yes, thank you." "Okay, eat quickly and take your medicine. I'll bring this soup every day for you." "You don't have to. I'm doing it so you'll get better soon. I'm going now. What should I do if I also catch it?" "Take care." Usually she hated me, but she even made soup for me. Because I was sick, I guess I became vulnerable, like anyone who gets sick. So all the resentment I had piled up over the years melted away, and I was so grateful that I had tears in my eyes. I was sick with the flu for a whole week like that. For all that time, my mother-in-law brought me soup, telling me to take my medication and to eat, even if I had no appetite. So after I recovered from the flu, I wanted to thank her by taking her out to lunch to show my appreciation. I took a half day off from work and went over to her house, but she wasn't there, and just her dog Coco was eating her food. I didn't think, and just approached the dog to see if she was eating her food, okay? But I noticed that she wasn't eating normal dog food, but something like soup, which was strange. Then I saw something shocking in the kitchen. I saw a large can which was labeled chicken soup for the dog. I tasted what was left in the can and realized that the soup was the same kind that my mother-in-law had brought for me, and that I had tasted somewhat meek, thinking she purposely made it with less salt for my health. I burst into anger that I had suppressed all at once. In the living room, I could see Coco drinking up the chicken soup, and to think that I had gratefully eaten that for a whole week, and I felt so betrayed that I thought I would lose my mind. Right then, my mother-in-law came home, together with someone. I wanted to lunge at her and ask how she could have done that to me, but I hid myself, taking my shoes, in the small room, since I thought she would deny what she did. Then she was talking excitedly with some woman she came with, not knowing that I was there. Right then, Coco must have finished eating the soup, and she talked about it. Do you know what? Did I tell you that my daughter-in-law got sick with the flu? Yes, you did. Didn't you say that you took her some chicken soup every day? Yes, I did. When you said that, I thought you had finally decided to accept her into your family. What do you mean, accept her into my family? My Coco wouldn't eat at all, so I bought a can of chicken soup for the dogs. But she wouldn't even eat that. I felt so bad. Then I heard that my daughter-in-law caught the flu, and I was worried about my son. So I told him that I would take care of his wife, and told him to stay at my house. But why should I make food for that witch? Then I noticed the can of chicken soup for Coco. Oh my lord, that was so mean of you. How could you give soup, meant for the dogs, to your daughter-in-law? Well, it wasn't a leftover like in the olden days. These days, dogs eat better food than humans. It's healthier because it doesn't have harmful ingredients. Anyhow, she liked it and ate it up, so she ended up eating all of my Coco's soup. However, Coco must have caught on that someone else was eating her soup, and starting today, she was eating that soup really well too. It was so amazing, so I ordered another can of that soup. I thought the timing was right, so I quickly opened the door and went out. Then, as if she had seen a ghost, the woman who was with her left quickly, and my mother-in-law's face turned red, and she fidgeted, pretending she was doing something else. I was so furious that I lost my temper. Mother, the soup you brought me all this time was meant for the dogs? It's the same thing whether for a person or for a dog. It's actually healthier. Is that right? Then, starting today, you should start eating that. I'll go to the pet store and buy a bag full of it. Oh my lord, look how you glare at me. You look like a dog with rabies. Is that right? Then do you want to see what happens when a person with rabies bites? When I think back on that time, my head still spins. Anyhow, just as she called me that, I bit her hard on her arm to the point where it started bleeding, as if I were a dog with rabies. She screamed like crazy and yelled, "You crazy bitch!" Right? You should feel lucky that you didn't get bitten by a crazy dog. With screaming going back and forth, the next-door neighbor called the police. My husband came to the police station to settle the matter, but even after I came home, he saw that I was still so angry and said something to me that he shouldn't have, as if to add fuel to the fire. Are you crazy? How could you bite my mom like a dog? That's because your mom treated me like a dog, so I bit her out of anger. Were you always this narrow-minded? I had you completely wrong. What are you gonna do about my mom's arm? What daughter-in-law in the world bites her mother-in-law out of anger? Go apologize to my mom immediately. I won't come home until you do. My husband yelled out and packed his bags and left. I thought he went to his mother's, but I ignored him. I wondered if my mother did the same things to him as his mom did to me, and whether he could do it as he said. After that day, I completely closed my heart towards my husband and his mom. The deeper I pondered, the more I thought about getting divorced. But as fate would have it, I didn't get my period even though the due date had passed. Nervously, I bought a pregnancy test and saw 2 faint lines. I didn't know whether I should be happy or unhappy, but since it wasn't our baby's fault, I notified my husband about it. The obstetrician told me that given my current physical condition, I could have a miscarriage and advised me to take it easy. So I decided to resign from my job. Since I was pregnant, my husband came back home. My mother-in-law complained about me all over the neighborhood, saying I was a terrible daughter-in-law, who was making a big fuss over my pregnancy and was a freeloader off of her son. She talked so badly about me that it even reached my ears from people I knew in another town away from me. She was the one who used to tell me that there was no difference between a person and a dog, but I couldn't stand being treated less than a dog. Even though I was pregnant, I started studying for the CPA exam, thinking that I became a student again. I was in a situation where I couldn't give my mom any money to help her since I quit my job. She felt sorry for me for studying while pregnant and told me that she would give me some pending money. Mom, you don't need to give me any money. I feel sorry that I can't give you anything right now. I don't intend to get any money from you. I'm doing it for myself. Actually, I never spent the money you gave me before and saved it. It's not as if I'm not working. So, you shouldn't worry about me anymore and only think about yourself. Also, you'll feel empty when you stop getting your pay. I'll send you money so you don't have to rely on your husband, so use that instead. It's okay, Mom. I also get some severance pay from my work. I'm only gonna study, so I have no place to spend money. But you're not alone. How are you going to manage all that studying for such a difficult exam? But if that's what will make you happy, I'm on your side. Cheer up, my daughter. I'm sorry I can't give you more help. With my mom cheering for me and with vengeful feelings against my husband and my mother-in-law, I studied very hard. As a result, after I gave birth, I became a CPA and was able to get a job at an accounting firm that year. My salary was a similar amount as when I was working before, but in terms of future prospects, benefits, and salary increases, it was just as good as that of any major corporation, so I was very satisfied. My husband and his mother had not expected me to pass the exam, so when I did, instead of being happy for me, they avoided me. After I had worked as an accountant for about a year, while my mom babysat for my baby, it was my mother-in-law's birthday. And suddenly my mother-in-law called with a sudden change in attitude, speaking in a very friendly voice and inviting me to go out to eat to celebrate her birthday. I thought the time had come. I might sound childish when I say this, but she had never come to my son's baby shower, his first birthday. When I called her to discuss planning for my son's first birthday party, she said, "You're so smart, so you should do it however you want." Why do you ask me? And my husband also said that he was too busy and complained, "Who has birthday parties these days?" So I had a simple birthday party where my mom baked a cake at her house. So I smirked at my mother-in-law, who was making a big deal of her own birthday and speaking in such a friendly voice as if we were so close. I wondered if she had lost her mind. I didn't know how to take that, but I didn't want to miss that opportunity, so I took my son and headed to her house. My husband told me that everything turned out well and said he wanted me to get along with his mom better, talking about a pie in the sky. Silently, I thought, how dare he tell me to get along with someone like his mother? And didn't even reply to him. When I didn't say anything, he became angry with me. What the? Are you still gonna keep on being like that? You're trying my patience. Today is my mom's birthday, and if you keep being like that, I won't stand for it. If you won't stand for it, then what? Are you gonna get a divorce? Just because you are now a CPA, it seems like you are not afraid of anything. But before now, you are nothing but an aging woman with a child. So you should stop acting beyond your means. You make me sick. When he said that, I wondered if he was my husband. Instead of acknowledging how hard I worked, what kind of husband tells his wife to know her place and only serves her a dish of crabs from his mother? Why? Do you feel guilty about something? What makes you sick? Explain what I did that was overboard. Did we ever even have any conversations? Did you give me any chance to go overboard? Don't make me out to be a bad person just because you're feeling guilty. You look so small when you act like that. We arrived at his mother's house fighting. Then I gave my mother-in-law her birthday present, which was a bag full of canine milk and food. What are these for? There are no presents for me, except all the food for the dog. No, Mother, they are for you. Didn't you tell me? You said that a dog or a person is the same. Since you care so much for my sister-in-law, I thought it would be good if you ate those together with her. So, I bought the best brands for you. What? Hey, are you playing with me? Playing? If I do it, it's playing, and if you do it, it's not playing? I didn't even know that, and I was grateful to you, so I came that day to buy you something delicious to eat. So you bit my arm that day. You really hold a grudge for a long time. But that's all in the past, right? Do you think I could forget what you did forever? Hey, you two, stop it. If you're going to act like this, just live separately with this kind of household. Do you think I could work well outside? "Oh, my son, isn't your work going well in your company?" I yelled at my husband. "Why are you blaming me for what you're doing outside of our home? Do you ever babysit or what? Hey, how dare you talk like that to my son? It's a woman's job to work at home and take care of the baby. Just because you passed that stupid CPA exam, do you think you have become someone important? If you're gonna behave like this, sever your ties with us and get divorced." Okay, I wished for that. Since you don't even care for your grandson, you'll never have to see him, right? I left our house taking my son and preparing for the divorce. I may have overreacted, but it was because of my hatred towards my mother-in-law that I gritted my teeth and became a CPA. So I should thank her, perhaps. However, after being betrayed so terribly, I couldn't help but feel hateful whenever I saw my mother-in-law. I thought of that canine soup and my husband, who spoke so coldly to me that it was impossible to carry on a normal marriage. Thus, we ended up getting divorced. Even the process of getting a divorce wasn't easy. When I had to fight to the end with someone I had loved so much, I started to doubt whether we had ever truly loved each other. After a difficult divorce, 1 year had passed. My wounds from divorcing were starting to heal, and even though it wasn't easy, I was finding happiness in living with my mom and my son, watching him grow. Then, one day, my mother-in-law came to my work. "How are you?" she asked. "I want to apologize for my behavior before, but I'm telling you that I didn't have a bad motive. So, please stop being angry, and don't you want to get back with my son James again? I miss our grandson, and I want to be nice to you. James also seems to want that. I don't know why you suddenly had a change of heart, but I have no intention of doing that." James didn't call me even once after our divorce. We had such a difficult divorce, so I don't want to go back to that kind of hell ever. It's because something terrible happened to James. Still, we were husband and wife at one time. So please help me and your husband. Even though she said that something terrible happened to her son, I didn't pay much attention to it. Then, even though I didn't ask what happened, she started to tell me about her son. The story was that I didn't know why, but before we got divorced, my husband and I were having problems. My husband was considering quitting his job and finding work elsewhere. He then moved to a new company where an acquaintance recommended that he invest and work as a management member. However, it turned out to be a fraud, and they tried to steal money from my ex-husband. He lost all of his savings and even his pension fund that he had advanced, leaving him unemployed overnight. His son also became penniless and unemployed, and his mother needed my help. Despite not being able to afford to dwell on the past, she bravely came to me and apologized. This experience taught me that in life, you never know what the future holds, and a person's circumstances can change drastically overnight. However, even with this knowledge, I couldn't take on the role of head of the household on behalf of my ex-husband, as we had already decided to go our separate ways. I turned my back on them, believing that they got what they deserved. Still, I do think about how my husband and mother-in-law are doing from time to time, but I feel that our fate has ended there. As a parent, I teach my son, who is articulate and curious, that it is more important to not be a bad person than to simply be a kind person. I want to instill in him the understanding that if one intentionally harms others, it will come back to them in multiple ways. Even though I am unaware of how his father and grandmother are living, all I can do is pray that they will not repeat their mistakes. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope that you have a happy today and tomorrow. Please show your support and share your words of wisdom in the comments section. Liking and subscribing would also be greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful day.